Welcome, everybody, to the very first episode of the Discord Roundtable.
Welcome at the typical Skeptic Podcast's Roundabout. Join us every Saturday for the Roundtable Show.
On today's show, myself, Don Rogers, Flicks, Dan, and Jamie will be joining me on a discussion panel where we will discuss current events, THQ, arts and crafts, and Touchdown Tommy and Allison Yellowknee. So that would go to Jamie.
Current events.
And the ascension symptoms for today that I was going to bring up is, well, first of all, that it'll vary with everyone. But let's see, migraines because of the energy pressure, and actually sometimes the pressure, like you're underwater as well. To me, that it's like a barrier that you're trying to push through, like unlocking something. There's going to be resistance at first with all that energy coming in, and there's various ways of dealing with ascension symptoms as well. Frequency music, crystals, meditation, whatever works for you. Yeah. The frequency music, like grounding to your root chakras, or just grounding in general through earth, walking outside, stuff like that. Out in nature, help ground yourself better through all them energies. Because the process of the ascension symptoms is also grounding and anchoring all that energy into the earth as well. It's among other things would be the migraine, headaches, aches and pains, even being sick, a purging process, because you're cleansing and removing all that stuff that energy can't, that's not meant to be in your physical body, is cleared and purged out. Some go through it harder than others too. It all depends on everyone's level at the time as well. Everyone's on their own individual level.
Something you and I had talked about with the group before was like the unexplained exhaustions. Like almost everybody I know is just needing to drop into power naps or oversleeping and I was just wondering if anyone else can relate to that as well. Like I know like my partner and I ended up sleeping for like 12 hours the one day.
Oh, definitely. I've even gone through periods where I haven't even slept for hardly at all. Sometimes it does the opposite, and there's so much energy coming in. I literally would like sleep 2 hours, up, sleep 2 hours again. It's like you're trying to integrate the energies, like you get off balance, and that's why I mentioned the grounding as well, is because sometimes you're off balance, and that's what puts you to sleep as well. It's like your physical trying to handle new things occurring.
Dan, do you think that maybe your recent being sick had anything to do with your recovery being slow because of ascension symptoms?
Maybe. I think it's strange that now that illness has become so politicized in the past few years. I try to be careful about these things, but when I think back for my own ascension symptoms, it's definitely I was getting a lot of the gastritis in the spring, and then again in the fall. It could be that it's related with stress and things like this, but I find it was really strange that it just sort of let up through the whole summer and then it came back again. So I think for everybody, it's just different symptoms. And sometimes it's just like, honestly, like everybody's having different approaches to these things. But I guess what we do is we figure out what works for us. You sort of go through this long process of elimination. Okay, is it dietary? Is it this? Is it that? And eventually you find something that works for you. I really don't think it's a one size fits all kind of thing.
Yeah. Flix, how have you been dealing with yours?
Good evening, everybody. Yes, the ascension symptoms in general, it's an entire process. And I like, Jamie, that you mentioned the migraines and the tiredness. That's something that was especially on the foreground this week for my body vessel as well. I felt it especially here at my nose. You have these two little creases on the side. I was massaging them to make sure that the tension that was there would be released a little bit. That seemed to help for me. And I was falling asleep, really, like my eyes were falling, were closing like on different times of the day. And I gave in to that. I could. And laying flat really helps you to integrate it, because the nervous system is what I feel is that my nervous system needs to sort of calm down. So what Dan said about the stress is maybe pretty important. You have to calm down, release the stress, maybe do some breath work while you lay down, because that way you can integrate it a little bit faster. So even doing a power nap at work might help you more dealing with the ascension symptoms. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
I've noticed in my own personal life, and my partner as well, is a lot of synchronicities with other people within our general community and people involved in the metaphysical. Brief story, I had a friend that came back into my life that I met probably one of the worst times of my life. And he came back in and he's like trying to soft sell me on ascension and metaphysical stuff, because he doesn't realize that I'm already in the middle of my own transition. And it's just crazy, because like we met at the worst part and now we're meeting at the best part. And with the synchronicity there, that was cool. But I've even watched with, at least Dan and Felicia, that my partner has said or had exact things line up with you guys, and we're thousands and thousands of miles away from each other.
Yeah.
It's happening on a higher soul connection.
Yeah, and I've noticed for sure lately there's been I don't know, the intuitive sense is really developed. I don't know if it's just with what I'm working on with some people and myself, but yeah, those kinds of, whether they're synchronicities or I don't know, I like playing with a lot of things. I'm even constantly doing it, trying to predict what's happening next and just sort of see how well I'm doing with that. And it seems to be coming easier and more naturally too. So that's good. You know, it's
sorry.
No, please go ahead.
I was going to say, it feels like we're all drawn together with the energies. We're just drawn to the flow of energy of each other, connecting on a higher level to be each other's support system in a way to work all this out and help each other through it. Raise each other to a higher level, raise everyone's vibes, try to help those that can understand things better.
And I think for me personally, that actually kind of leads into our next subject, which is Dan with his THQ. He has alleviated so much of the internal stress that I've been going through personally, and my partner as well, with the sessions that he does. And I'd love if you could kind of give the audience a brief description of what all that entails.
Sure. Yeah. So it just stands for True Quantum Healing. Some people may have seen me do it with Rob on Rob's show before, where I explained it a bit. But essentially, quantum healing, true quantum healing is a system that Chris Kaler developed in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and it's very interesting. I'll just sort of briefly explain it. It sounds complex, on a certain level, but not really. Basically, what I do with it is we connect through the higher self and do a pendulum dowsing through charts that I have a bunch of different types of symptoms and issues that people can have, whether they're spiritual, emotional, physical, combination of all those things, sort of see what's the cause behind it and a way to solve it. And then basically when we know what the issue is and how to remedy it, we work in focusing our intention, and that's done through the energy healing tool of things like the triple LED pyramid, which I'll pull out in a second, and basically project our intent that our higher self has helped us direct us towards, and literally do the clearing in that way. So that's the most basic, but you can ask me for clarifications and I can explain it further. I just want to make it too complicated.
No, you made it very clear. For somebody who was coming in blind, I immediately understood what it was we were about to do. And our first session was just so energetically refreshing. It literally felt like I had been cleared from top to bottom the next day. I woke up on a bit of a high from it. Like, it was just wonderful.
That's cool. Yeah, well, it's great in terms of, like, I know a lot of people go through really hard times when they've had paranormal experiences and they're on this spiritual warrior journey, and sometimes it really seems unfair. I came to TQH through a very odd mystic path that I had no intention of finding it, but I did. But the point is that I'd want to make is that, I think Source is merciful and higher powers are merciful to the plight that we endure. And this is one of the tools that we have to say it doesn't have to stay in a negative space. We can sort of work through it. There are tools to work through it. And in the process of that, also strengthening our connection to faith and our spiritual understanding and place. And I think that's the really magical part about it, is learning how to work with spirit more.
Well, I can definitely vouch for that too. Because I had a session with you too, and it wasn't even a healing one. It was asking questions, and even that is still part of the healing process. Because my higher self connected so strong and was so happy to talk to you that I could feel her excitement. I mean, it was amazing. And ever since then, now she connects with me a lot stronger, and the presence is like a lot more often.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun connecting with your higher selves, just like you. I tell people these things at times, how I like to pick up on it. You can tell the distinct personalities, so that's great. Yeah.
Did you want to share the actual tools with the audience as well?
Sorry, I didn't have it ready there. I had to sort of go off camera for a moment.
Yeah.
So here's the pyramid that I'm talking about, right? So this pyramid is constructed according to principles of sacred geometry. And you can see in there that one of the objects besides the pyramids that you see here is divinity, what's called the divinity ring in this system. There's this ball of shungite and a shungite pyramid as well on the top, and it's all done through orgone energy. If you look at it briefly, I've sort of played with it in different ways, but you'll notice that it's actually proportioned as well according to the sacred geometry that's in our own body. Our face is designed according to sacred geometry. Our body's designed according to sacred geometry. All things in creation are designed according to sacred geometry. Things tend to look ugly when they're not. So that's the basics of it. So just working with the intent there. That's what we do when we sort of issue the commands, and it's not really a command like in a negative sense. This is, all the negative things that we see in the world, whether they're, various forms of magic or negative intent, is really just an inversion of something that was once good. So this is just trying to right old wrongs. It's a simple way to put it. Things that shouldn't happen, but maybe we can develop a greater connection and understanding by having to do it. Just like when we're ill, right? Like we get ill, like we learn, oh, soup's really good for you when you're ill. This is really good for you. And we learn how to take care of ourselves better through illness. That's what we can do as well when we're forced to address these kinds of issues. So that's it.
Okay. Felicia, did you have anything to ask about that, or?
I've had a session by Dan, multiple ones, and I will love to share those experiences, and maybe we can do that in the next episode.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, and that can bring us into Felicia's share here. Usually we'd have arts and crafts, but today we're just going to have arts. So if you want to introduce what you're going to show us, Felicia.
Arts and crafts. Yes, in this section, arts and crafts, for this week, I'm a spiritual songwriter. Sometimes I write songs with the English lyrics, and it just flows through me, like I channel it from my higher self. And sometimes I sing in light languages. And today I would like to share, I will start my share screen. I would like to share a song. Weer een ideetje. Een willekeurige lichtwerkerskaart en daar een liedje op baseren. Spirituele bescherming door Merkaba. Dit is de kaart. Even van dichtbij. Zo. Love flowing into this world. Love flowing everywhere. No need to hide anymore, 'cause it's all here now. Nothing to lose at all. Feel yourself, feel your body, feel your energy. Go within, inside, go into your heart, breathe consciously and feel the you that you truly are. You are love, you are light, you are the truth, you are, yes, that's Does it match how you feel inside or not? Maybe we've been tricked into believing something else that wasn't true. Me and you. So come on, rise up. Come on and feel that flow in your fingertips. Let it rise above all you've known before. Activate your pineal gland, your third eye, and see with your inner vision. Feel with your inner senses what's really real. And then you feel two triangles, one pointing up, one pointing down. That's your Merkaba. There's like a circle around it. It's a conscious field, your consciousness, always in contact with Source. We were never separate at all. Yes, we were duped into believing we were our minds when we're not. No, that's not who we are. I'm not my body, I'm not my mind or emotions. I'm a whole being. I am that I am. I am my consciousness. That's who I am. And in my consciousness feel I can travel the stars and planets. I can go anywhere I want. And my body holds all the knowledge of galaxies, of time and space, 'cause this is not all there is. There's so much more to explore. Merkaba field like an orb in space, flowing and playing around towards the sun and going back and flowing. Aquarius age, it's here now for all of us to feel. To feel and to be, to let Source flow through us, to let the knowledge flow through us. No more separation. Het kan beter. Maar dit is hem. Bye-bye.
Don't forget to stop by the Typical Skeptic Podcast store available on Spring, where you can get this wonderful sweater or these wonderful coffee mugs and many, many more items. So this would begin the roundtable section of the show.
Round table.
Coming up next on this week's episode of the Discord Roundtable, we will be discussing 2 episodes from the Typical Skeptic Podcast, Touchdown Tommy Edwards and Allison Yellowknee. To begin with, in my personal opinion, with Touchdown Tommy Edwards, probably some of the more compelling visual evidence that I've seen. And as far as his experiences with being a targeted individual, I know we've covered this personally, Felicia, in past conversations. Is there a connection between his father being a professional athlete and Tommy being a professional athlete? And how far back does the involvement go? Was his father involved in something beyond what he knew?
Interesting. Yeah.
Because he's very clear that his father was involved with professional sports, which is a branch of the military-industrial complex, and tied into a lot of 3-letter agencies and completely staged. But, it's that manipulation from the get-go that just makes you wonder how long this poor man has had this done to him.
What I noticed in watching Tommy speak is the first thing I got were like goosebumps, because my body told me this is someone who's telling his truth, because sometimes you still, when you watch an episode or a video of someone telling their story and their experiences, you sometimes think is that fully truth or not, or whatever. So I always trust my body when I get those goosebumps. And I felt that he had a lot of incidents and situations that would put him in that position where he is. And I can also feel that has many of his intuitive gifts opened as well. And of course, I have a link with making songs as a songwriter, and he is that too. So I felt really connected in that sense as well. And I was really feeling him on a deep empathic level. And then he showed those videos of the shapeshifter. That was another part of it. And that was amazing. And I did pull back a little and watched it from a multiple perspective. And for me, that I think it is absolutely possible that the dimensional realities are seeping through now into our 3D reality. So I'm very open to that. There is also things happening like a window or other objects that can shine lights that would influence anything you record on a video. I mean, if so I'm always a little bit skeptic. That's why I watch the Skeptical Podcast about things like that. But so that's my perspective on that show. But it was I really enjoyed watching it in that sense. It was really triggering on some levels, but it was really good.
Yeah. Jamie, you've said you've had similar mists in your own home too. It was like off of what Flix was saying there, with our dimensions kind of coming very close to each other.
Yeah. So, I actually had a download message for Flix about that too. It's it's the ascension systems and everything connected together with the dimensions and energy coming together, pulling the earth into a higher frequency. We're shifting it, pulling it up to 5D, but at the moment it's taking so much energy that it's like it gets stuck in periods. And I think that's where some of the time lapse is also, is like it gets stuck in. And right now we're the physical part of us, some of us are even in the 4D borderline to the third, even borderline to the fifth. That's why there's so many levels everybody's at. And I've noticed that the higher in frequency the earth starts to get, the more often we see those beings. And I feel like some of them are a mix of interdimensional and inner earth coming to the surface because of it being at a higher frequency. They can be seen more often.
Yeah, it was absolutely some of the most impressive footage, like, for the naked eye. And you have to remember, I'm running off of a cell phone. I don't have a big screen to analyze, but it was rather impressive to me. What did you think, Dan?
Yeah, it's really interesting because when you were saying that, it was really tying into things like I talk about with Jamie, and we were having some interesting working through the dowsing. I don't want to necessarily share something you're not ready for there, Jamie, but we were talking about this type of subject, right? Like,
it's okay,
because of a crossing of the threshold.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways it was explained to us, because a lot of things, obviously, the point is that a lot of good things get weaponized, but it doesn't mean that just because there's one phenomenon, there isn't also a very positive aspect to the same phenomenon. And what we got with Jamie, especially when it was coming to the work with the dragons, was getting information about ELF waves, and how that works. And it's almost like they're trying to manifest more into this realm, and this sort of a bridge that they're doing that through. And so it's just very exciting, because this can also affect how we even see things. It actually has the ability to change the effect on our brain and what we're able to see. Sorry, Felicia.
I don't know what ELF waves are.
I have to check it again too, because I just remembered it as ELF. So 1 second.
Is that like brain waves?
Yeah,
or
it's a wavelength, extremely low frequency. Sorry, I just had to check that.
Extremely low frequency. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt, but I didn't know.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Yeah. I like to say it's sort of neat, so you can remember it's ELF, because it's like, this is how the elf comes in, right? You can remember ELF as elf. So maybe this is really the energy of the elves and all of these creatures that are really starting to manifest. And maybe part of it is with people as well that are doing the inner spiritual work, seeing these things more, right? I think a lot of the people are interested in the typical skeptic podcast have their own paranormal experiences, and they're really just trying to sort through them and understand the world, because the conventional models that we've been sold don't explain these things. Mm-hmm. And it really bothers you, because you're like, well, either I have to dismiss my own experience, which I think is the default setting we get habituated to, or we start to say, maybe the way things explained to me isn't quite the whole picture. Perhaps there's a little bit more to it. So I think that's the part that's exciting, because it really ties in all of these aspects.
And the kids are so accelerated in this experience that we're going through. And I got to share it again, because it's my favorite memory of the week. I stopped at the mall for lunch, and there was a group of young children. They're all girls, and they were sitting with these two mothers. And the one looks at her and goes, well, I'm 8. That means infinity. I'm sorry, I'm 45, and I just figured out that concept recently. And then her friend looks at her and goes, I might be 7, but I'm a spirit and I've been here forever. What did you say? Like, I took my sandwich out of my mouth. I was like, did that kid really actually identify as part of spirit?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah. Yeah, I had a similar thing when I was actually talking with my own kid. I said, "Why am I seeing so many lights and why am I seeing this and why am I seeing this?" And she just simply stated, "Because your brain is functioning more fully now and you're activating things that you haven't seen before." I'm like, "What? A kid knew that more than me?"
our
Thank
son has
you.
our son has defused heated conversations between me and my partner, and it's like, holy crap, here's our 15-year-old playing therapist because he's got it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's just, they're so accelerated. Sorry, I know I went off topic there, but that was
I
so.
would like to add in one more thing about the video that Touchdown Tommy made about the shapeshifter, and also what Jamie said about being in different states of being, so 3D, 4D, or 5D. Everybody almost has a mobile phone with a camera nowadays. And when you are in 3D and you record a video, you see nothing. When you, as the person or the consciousness, are in 4D, then what you video gets these light effects like orbs or mists or maybe even a
Dragons.
UAP or dragons. And when you are in 5D, that becomes even stronger. Then it becomes even more visible on your video that you are recording. So somehow it is connected. So some people might record it and it shows nothing extra. But if you have that higher vibration, if you've done the inner work, if you know who you are, know thyself, then you will capture those moments more. And I think that not everybody in the audience might know that it works like that. I wanted to add that in.
That's really good. Yeah.
Well, and that puts a whole new concept on the dimensions altogether. I mean, when you yourself raise in consciousness, you have to raise your consciousness at such a high maximum level just to pull yourself up even a little in the physical. And it's just such a big eye opener. And then you realize, wait a minute, maybe when you're in 5D, you still have physical form, but it just comes off as more ethereal. But you still have that physical, it just changes as your consciousness does. I don't think your physical actually becomes too, like, I don't know, they want to say like they try to say that when you get higher in dimension that your physical form disappears, but I don't think so. I think the process of what we're doing now, raising the Earth's frequency at the same time, is bringing us all at a lighter physical level.
I agree with that. And I actually, before we get on to Alice and Yellowney, wanted to ask Flix, what you're describing with the cell phone makes absolute sense to me. What does it mean when you can start to see it with your naked eye? Because it's been happening in our own household, and I'm sure it's been happening. I've seen people in the Discord chat when I've brought it up go, oh, that's what that is? I thought my eyes were going wonky. No, there's stuff that I've seen, my entire family has seen things phasing in and out, like naked eye.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I've been thinking about that. When you start to see it with both your 3D regular eyes, and you can see the light, the orbs, the beings, that means that your pineal gland has been activated. A lot of times you've had the amazing Kundalini rising energy that is really popping open the whole channel between all your chakras. That's another story I won't go into right now, but that's when you usually get your pineal activated. Some of us are indigos, like I am, and my pineal was always activated. And I could close it a little bit. I had some control over it at least. But the other point I would like to make about the vision is that some people say in the community, especially in the New Age community, is they say it could be part of macular degeneration of your eyes, that you start to see weird things, or you have Alice in Wonderland syndrome. That's also when you see the 3D reality in a completely different way. But I happen to have had macular degeneration in one eye after an EMDR session, by the way, when I was healing trauma and there was too much tension. And that means that there's a blood vessel in the eye, that yellow part that reflects light. I won't go into it now too deep. Anyway, so a blood vessel opens up, bursts. And what you see then is, if you look at something that has stripes, the stripes will become wiggly.
Oh.
That is what you see, sort of, when you have macular degeneration. But when you see light beings, orbs, or something, it's like another dimensional space or realm over top. So like when you see paranormal, like ghosts or something, it's not a physical thing, yet it has some sort of dimensional sense. It's like right here is a ball of light, and it's not here, but it's here. You can sort of gauge how far it is from you, like with UAPs as well.
Yes.
So there is a dimensional reality to that phenomenon, and it has nothing to do with a distorted view, whether it's with the regular eyes or the pineal.
Right.
Okay.
Anybody
and that sort of
has
goes
questions?
into that ELF idea too, though, because it says it can literally affect the brain and what's seen. So it could be that there's a form of physical matter, but we're dealing with literally a different wavelength. So there's a science to it.
Thank you. Thank you. I get a download because of that. The brain translates what the cones in the eyes perceive as light coming in. And the brain translates that. But the brain is also connected to the DNA. And if you have DNA activated and the pineal is also letting in different light from other dimensions, in the third eye, that's also connected to the eye, that also has to be like a translation of the brain, then that means that the brain and the DNA are so literally connected in how you perceive that the inner senses and outer senses are actually what create your dimensional awareness. So that's how we create our realities, multiple.
And I think too that explains the veil in a way too. The veil is the thinning of the dimensions. You're able to see in higher dimensions. You're removing that veil completely and clearing that dimension. You're clearing the energy of the dimension so you can go higher as well. And once you've cleared that, it's almost like a gate. It's almost like allowance to the higher dimension.
And I hope what most people are getting out of this, if you're having any of these symptoms, don't let anybody, even yourself, question yourself, because you need to sit and rationalize it with yourself, because we are so just easy to dismiss even our own thoughts and beliefs because it's not convenient for the workaday world. And you think, oh, I'm just crazy. That was a silly thought. No, embrace them and actually look at them, because a lot of the time, your first thought, you're right.
And I know with Jamie, I mean, we were doing it because she wanted some more information, just to clarify, because sometimes we have an event and we were talking about this earlier, sometimes we're not sure how to read the event. Is this a negative event that's happening to me or a positive event? And it's good to even be open-minded and know that it could be one or the other, because sometimes we convince ourselves simply because something is strange that it must be something negative. And in any case, her higher self wanted to relieve her of thinking it was a negative event. And that's how we came across some of this information about the ELF. It's not even like it just sort of went to a spot on the chart. It spelt it all out for us. And then I was like, okay, and sometimes I'm researching at the same time. But there are these connections. So my point is if we work intuitively as well in doing our research, we can start to, we can find things out on our own. Like our spirit wants us to know, our higher self wants us to know. And we have to trust in it.
Yeah, dissolve of the labels, because the labels, I think, get people stuck thinking it has to be a certain way because someone gave it a label. And more discernment, less judgment. Don't judge something you don't understand. Discern through the energy to try to understand it. That's how you obtain new knowledge, is trying to understand it, not dismissing it or trying to say it's something you don't know.
Which I think can easily transition us into our next topic, which is Alice in Yellowknee.
Yeah.
And because as much as I enjoyed what she brought, I heard there was some very negative people being very dismissive of what she was bringing to the show. And I don't think that's what our community is about. First of all, I think she had an absolutely viable story. And for some of the people that don't understand what Northern Canada, much less Northern Alberta, is like for medical care, for you to be that judgmental, why didn't she go get a test? Why don't you move to where she lived and tell me how quick you can get to a hospital? That's my personal opinion, and I was pissed off that there was people doing that to her. Here's a person trying to tell their truth on an open forum, and you attack somebody. I don't agree with that, and that's just my personal take on the beginning of that.
Yeah.
Now that I've got that out, let's move on.
Well, I feel that's a whole other subject, but at the same time, it's probably good to address a little bit of it right now too. Is that I think that's where the discernment comes out. Less judgment, less judge. Don't be judging people. Don't be judging entities. Don't judge the energy before you discern through it. Learn. Don't just, in the face and just stop people from learning.
Yeah. And to go at it at that tact to the point where the host of the show has to address you personally. And this isn't one of the put a question in the chat segments. You're being that much of an annoying member of the chat. Like, I didn't agree with the behavior of the individual.
It's good. It's a good point to just understand that, we need to respect, especially when people are making themselves vulnerable.
Yes.
Like who really wants to talk about some of these kinds of events that happen to us, right? Especially if it's over a lifetime. So,
yes.
It's just this is also what keeps people keeping these things to themselves, even apart from their family and friends over their life. So it's very important. I think, a lot of us get into a lot of different venues of trying to improve ourselves. But I think the most important thing is still coming from a sense of compassion. And when we notice ourselves judging, here's it. It's not like we don't all judge here, every single one of us right here.
I still occasionally do.
But we can put ourselves more in the observer status and say, wow, that's really interesting. I'm judging pretty hard right now. I wonder what's making that happen. And just being very curious about it rather than always acting on it. And then sometimes we realize it passes. And so this kind of thing is important in that way. But I really enjoyed her testimony. I thought it was very powerful. I thought she was very grounded, and I felt it was very inspiring at the same
I
Well,
actually, oh, go ahead.
sorry, I got real excited there when you bring that up too, because I was also gonna say that too many people put too much into what people are sharing too, and don't stop and think, well, wait a minute, they don't know what they're talking about either. They're sharing their experience on their individual level, how they perceive it. It's their perception, not yours. Everyone's going to be different because everyone learns at a different time. So to judge someone is kind of hasty before you even understand things yourself. And we're all here to learn from each other. We each have a piece of the puzzle that connects everybody together and figure it out from there. And if you keep separating yourself from that connection and just thinking you know it all when we're all learning, then you're missing out on learning yourself.
Yep. Felicia?
How about you, Felicia?
Would I like to talk about the show of Alison Yellowknee? I was gonna talk about that, and I feel a little bit like not very safe to share my personal experience that she triggered in me. So I will share that another time when the subject about the abductions and things will get discussed. And for me personally, in responding to viewers who have a tendency to be very judgmental and putting people down or things like that, is that I have found a very good way in, okay, am I personally connected? Do I have a relationship to this person? Well, if it's just in general chat, I don't. So I am really good, after a few years, I'm really good at ignoring that. Because if I give that my attention, I give it energy and power and my focus. And the result will be that those people will become more empowered in their complaining about other people who are vulnerable and coming out there. So that's a way for me to deal with viewers who are in a more judgmental state of being. And I send them love in my thoughts. That's how I deal with that.
I really appreciate that, because kind of repiped and reframed a lot of. I was really irritated with what went on, and I think it clearly came out in what I said. But I do appreciate the approach you just mentioned too. It resonates with me and is the much more rational approach and more
Yeah.
understanding.
I think my own involvement too is sort of similar to yours, Dawn. Sometimes we have a bit more of an attachment because we feel a bit protective over certain people more. I know in the case for me that was the case, just because I'm very familiar with First Nations issues, and that, and I'm sure you are, and especially living where you are. So sort of have that different perspective. But yeah, it's good. And I know you, Felicia, when that interview was taking place, you were expressing a wish for having your access to elders as well. She was talking about, talking with the elders and that kind of thing. And I think that was a very interesting aspect to what she was talking about, that she could work with the wisdom, what was left in the community, to help guide her through it. And we see this, I think that's an important part of her testimony, because I know First Nations don't like to openly talk about these sensitive areas too much, because their cultures have been trashed, right? So they're very careful about what they talk to European man about. But I have a background in that as well, and I think it's really interesting because it also shows that this goes back historically, and shows it more on a larger planetary level, that this is part of a more ancient wisdom as well. This isn't just something that's Roswell or other types of narratives that are out there. This is a part of a larger story. And that part's quite exciting to me in what she was sharing. That's the significance of it.
Yeah. Well, I noticed unlocking ancient information, even from my own experience with what she was going through too, is there's so much ancient knowledge out there that's still being unlocked, and then people disregard it and say, oh, it's new age stuff. No, it's ancient knowledge forgotten. But then you think, well, if we've been stuck in this time continuum thing, well, then how old is that actually, within this realm? I mean, that information could even bypass itself and be even older than we think as well. And we could have reincarnated each so many times. We've forgotten it. And so, I mean, a lot of us have probably already ascended multiple times. And so in that aspect, I feel we're a lot stronger than we let on as well. We need to give ourselves a little more credit, I think, and realize we are pretty powerful, or they wouldn't put so much against us in the first place.
And that ties in so well with that whole connection with the First Nations. There was a reason why they were as brutal to them as they were, because they carried that knowledge, they carried that wisdom, and it wasn't just a book knowledge. It was something that those communities were living and passing down as knowledge, which is a big reason that they were targeted for ethnocide and genocide, right? Yeah. By the Europeans. Well,
yeah. And I think that's a pretty good place to leave off with that. And next up would be the coming events, but we don't really have anything upcoming for Rob that I know of, because I couldn't get a list of his upcoming shows. But Dan, you have something coming up, don't you?
Yeah. So I'm going to be doing an interview with James Bartley again this week. I'm not sure when he'll be able to post it, but look out for that. It's all part of a big community, right? We have the typical skeptic, Journey to Truth, all these people, Eve Lorgan, James. I mean, they're the OGs in a lot of this stuff. Been having skin in the game for decades. And I mean, check out all those things, because there's so many resources of things, it's worth looking at. A lot of good work, a lot of people put out there, and just keep looking for what clicks with you,
Yeah. Where would somebody contact you for a Q or THQ session?
Sure. So for now, probably just the easiest way is through an email. Since my name seems to be on here anyway, I can give that email. It's a bit better. So it's same as what my name is showing, Daniel Armstrong, Mr. Daniel Armstrong at protonmail.com, or Stanton Mick, my handle that I use, at hotmail.com. That's the oldest email.
Well, does anybody have anything else before we'd like to close out for the show?
Oh, I just wanted to do a quick reminder. With all the craziness going on, and yes, there will be increasing ascensions, there will be increasing solar flares, the increase of energy, and increase of all sorts of information floating around. And amongst the chaos, just remember to center yourself and breathe. We got this.
Good advice.
Thank you. Thank you for all of you. I really enjoyed.
I appreciated your company, and I hope the audience appreciated what we had to put out. We'll be back next week with a new show, new topics, and same panel. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Bye-bye.